So Pokey26 here, and we are once again looking at a PTR patch notes from Warcraft 3. This is the second version of it. I guess you could call it build 22710. But yeah, it's the second. It's just an updated version of the previous one, and I think we'll skip over. I mean, maybe we'll look at this if there's details, like if these details are not shown. But we'll look at the master list instead. I think. Wait. Okay, it looks like the details are shown. So yeah, just look at the master change list. All right, from the top, we got some performance issues, whatever. Just visual stuff. Map pool updated with maps that are not named, of course, because why would they tell us 60 unless it's posted somewhere else? Okay, on to balance. So actually, maybe I should look at the top side just to make sure I'm not missing anything. Let's see, what other ones changed? Runa, Lesser Healing, Ring, and Vampiric. Okay, so the Vampiric Potion, I didn't actually see the stats on here last time because they didn't have them right away. But I believe it was something like plus 12 damage with 75% lifesteal. Something like that. It was something pretty crazy. So they did tone it down, but at the same time, I feel like this is still plenty for the two heroes it works well on, Demon Hunter and Blade, to still crush. Like if you get 20 seconds of this, Demon Hunter and Blade Master are still going to kind of crush with it, right? So like it's like an old class 6, but you also heal for half your damage, which is a lot of damage over 20 seconds. You're healing up. So I don't know. I still think it's kind of insane. Um, but the thing is, it's only good for a small selection of heroes. Like for other heroes, it's just kind of whatever. You'll probably still use it for like the 6 damage, but the lifesteal might not matter, you know? So I feel like this item just doesn't fit. But if they want to include it, maybe it's cool. And if they do want to include it, I feel like I feel like the lifesteal should maybe even be lower, but then what's the point of it being a vamp potion and not just like a plus damage potion or something, right? Maybe a plus damage potion would be better. Lesser rune of healing, 75 health. Okay. This is still an item that generally probably won't matter on the camps you creep for it. So I don't really like this item being added, but I guess map makers can technically choose to if they even want these type of drops to begin with. I don't know. I guess if you choose this drop pool, it's going to be in it though, right? I don't know. I don't really like this one because it feels kind of mediocre in most cases. I'm trying to think of like which camps you would creep where this matters, and I don't know. Like the first thing that comes to mind is always like Last Refuge. I'm like, you don't really care about this on Last Refuge. You don't care about this on Northern Isles. This is just such a small thing. Better to just keep this as like as the replenishment potion and that's it or something. Anyways, and then Ring of Protection got changed to have its cost reduced, which I think just applies for Marketplace and you know, selling it, buying it, whatever from there. So whatever, that's normal. And then for human, okay, let's check real quick, make sure the Orba slow, banish, holy light cooldown, flying machine move speed. Right. So yeah, Orba fire replaced with Orba slow is kind of crazy. The thing is, like it's only a chance to proc, first of all. The slow is probably pretty decent, but you'd mostly want it on like things you're chasing down or heroes, I guess. But I don't know. This is this even what human wants over Orb of Fire? I'm not actually too sure about it. Also, wait, when you proc this, it slows them for 20 seconds? Isn't that kind of crazy? Hold up. Hold up. And 5 seconds on heroes as well. But it's pretty low chance to proc on heroes. I'm not sure if I like this one. I feel like Orb of Fire was reasonable as is. And they obviously found use of it against Undead. But I think they want this to matter more against non-Undead, but I'm not actually sure where it comes into play. Like, it's really only against Elf, right? And against Elf, it's actually probably pretty good. Slowing Bears or Demon Hunter with this is actually pretty relevant. And you could have this on multiple heroes, but the orbs wouldn't stack if they're targeting the same target. But technically, you could micro your heroes to hit different targets, and you could have, you know, you could have your Archmage, Blood Mage hitting different things or something and slowing them. And you could quickly slow half an army if you're microing it properly. This orb is actually kind of crazy, but yeah, it's like chance to proc, which makes it difficult. I'm not sure if I like this one. From humans' perspective, it's kind of cool just to have something new and different to try out. Like it definitely could be fun to try out, right? But realistically, I'm not sure if they should really just be changing Orb Fire like that. Next is Flying Machine movement speed. I don't really like this change. I think Flying Machines were probably fine with their fast move speed. Probably. I'm not sure what this is meant to change for the matchups, but it seems. I assume this is mostly to help Undead in some way be able to kite against them, but is that even what you want? Like, isn't this Flying Machine's job to take out air units? So I don't really like this change. Um, Next we get another Blood Mage nerf, which is the cooldown increased on level 1 and 2. It's still fairly low cooldown, and a lot of people don't spam banishes, but this does make it so that you can't, you don't even get the option to spam banishes. So it's actually pretty big nerf, especially because banish usually on Blood Mage in Pally Rifle lineups only reaches these levels to begin with, because you're maxing Siphon instead. This is like level 2, this is level 4 Blood Mage, this is like level 7 Blood Mage. So it's a pretty big nerf. Like this one's probably even a bigger nerf than the Siphon to some extent. but people use the banish less. Like people mostly just focus on getting siphons off, and they definitely don't banish nearly enough unless they're actually like top players. From what I've seen. So at lower levels of play, this probably won't matter, but at higher levels of play, it will for sure, of course. And it's a pretty big nerf, but I think I like it. Maybe it should be. Uh, I was trying to think like maybe it should be like 3 and 1.5 or something, but I don't know. I guess 4 and 2 like just a little too long for that skill, or is it fine? I think this could be slightly lowered. What if they even made it like 2 seconds and 1 second? At least to start. Like the cooldown to basically be negligible still to some extent, but it would be there. I don't know. It's hard to say. Next, the next change was the Holy Light, and it got cooldown increased across the board. I don't know why they went 555 666 instead of just 5 and 6 when the cooldown is the same. I think this mostly implies that they're willing to change it, and I feel like they should probably to like 665 or 655. Probably like 665 if they want it to like not be strong on level 3 like it was. Uh, but I don't think this change is bad. I feel like that was one of the perks of playing Holy Light to begin with, was that it had a low cooldown compared to Coil. So I am wondering if it should be like 655 instead. Maybe just make the lowest level one weaker. But if they want to make this one weaker too, maybe this is fine. But this one should at least be normal. Like if you actually max Holy Light on like level 5 Paladin, I think it should still have the 5 second cooldown probably. Next orc changes. Orc changes. Okay, so they did quite a lot. Mostly the wards, Great Hall Time, Tauren, Lightning Orb. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, they're keeping this, which is cool. They're keeping the resistance skin, which is cool, I think. I don't know if it affects much in solo, which brings me to the next one, which is Taurens now have increased cost by 2020. Now, this just makes it so in solo play, like the resistance skin is strong, but I think in solo play, generally you won't get like, generally it won't matter. You're only gonna have like a couple Tauren, and they're not gonna have skills that resistance skin matters against. So now you're just paying more for them as well. So in solo, this is bad. In teams, this is probably still good. Like you would probably take resistant skin for increased torrent cost in like 4v4 games or free for all games, and you'd be happy with it because this is still good. But yeah, in solo, it makes it dead unit more dead, I would say. Like you're not making this in solo if it has increased cost, right? So I don't like this that they added this change. I think 280 is fine, but yeah, like if anything, maybe they should just make resistant skin have a base cost and like make you research it. But maybe like that would still be bad for solo. Like you still wouldn't play it then. So I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't really know what to say on this other than this looks bad. This is in solo, it's fine. In teams, maybe it's OP. And then Lightning Orb, they got rid of the cost reduction, but kept the summon damage. Personally, I would have rather had it the other way around. Like cost reduction to 350 or 325 or something, and then not have this extra summon damage. But this is still technically a buff. It's just, I don't really like this sort of buff where it's like you have a chance for Lightning Orb to proc, and now if it does proc, it does even more damage to a summon. So like if you first hit proc on a summon, that summon is screwed. But if you don't first hit proc or you don't proc at all, this means very little or nothing. But it's too it's too much of like an all-in type proc where you generally want to get it to proc on the first hit against the summon, and then there's no other benefit. So I don't know. I think I would have preferred just keeping Lightning Orb the same. So like get rid of this line and then lower the cost to 325. I think that would have been more reasonable. They kept these, which I already mentioned in the previous video that I didn't particularly like, but yeah, mostly because I don't like anything that gives air some sort of buff in Warcraft 3. Okay, and now the wards. So they did a bunch of ward changes now. So this is the same line as before, but in compensation for making these magic immune, they now have lower health, which I think is the right call. If you are going to make them magic immune, they need to have lower health because 100 health stasis ward that is magic immune is, kind of insane. Like, is that like 4 bear hits or something to kill it? Imagine having to spend 4 bear hits to kill one stasis ward because you can't abolish it or, get rid of it any other way. So I do think this is good if they are going to keep it magic immune. And now it like, if they're going to keep it magic immune, this works out. It makes some sense. The Sentry Ward one didn't necessarily need a huge nerf. Or, if they are going to nerf it, you can still leave it at like 100. But the stasis, I said Sentry Ward, right? Yeah. But the stasis trap and stuff does need this sort of nerf. But then they also reduced the radius and the duration. I don't actually mind the duration. Maybe the radius could have stayed the same. I mean, obviously, this is hard to tell because it's such a big change overall, making them magic immune and trying to figure out if they're even used. But maybe they're just playing on the safe side and seeing if people play it at all on the safe side. And if they do, then it's fine. If they don't, maybe they revert some of these, but still keep these type of thing. We'll see. Heal ward duration also affects the item. 5 seconds less. Probably fine. 25 seconds is still a lot. And then AoE reduced also affects the item. Probably fine. Like, honestly, I think these are fine. Before, I thought these were insane, and I did not like them because Magic Immune with all of this gone was kind of insane. But now with them having less health and like slightly less effectiveness, I think this is actually a fine change. I'm still not sure on the stasis ward reductions, but at least having it less health is good. You definitely want it to be more like 25 health so you can actually kill it in 1 or 2 hits, or depending on what's hitting it. So yeah, overall, I'd say this is good in that it'll be interesting to see it be used, right? It could inspire some new type of work play. And then Great Hall build time. This was probably slightly too much, particularly because one of the most annoying playstyles is Orc expansion with tons of towers, and they made it better with Wind Riders giving less XP. Although now without this Lightning Orb buff, maybe it's, I don't know. This is still a buff, so I think this is fine. But I did think maybe this was too much, unless they actually want Orc to be the type of race that expands a lot more. Because 15 seconds is quite relevant. 5 seconds is whatever. They can have 5. You know, this is fine. And then Night Off. Night Off got some changes, I know. Let's see. Make sure I remember these. Maybe I could just read it up there. Either way, we'll go to here. So Wisp lumber gather rate reduced from 8 to 7. If I'm reading this, or if I'm understanding this correctly, I believe this means they harvest more wood rather than 8 seconds to get 5 wood. It's like 7 seconds to get 5 wood, right? As far as I know, this makes them better, so it's a buff. In which case, I don't like this change. I think that's the type of thing that shouldn't be touched. Resource gathering rates is not something that should be changed 20 something years into the game. If you're going to make a change, it should be something with like the cost of the unit or whatever, right? Or cost of buildings that these units are making. Like if you want elves to get more wood, instead you could just make moon wells cost 35 wood instead of 40 wood. But changing the actual gather rate seems pretty bad, so I don't like this change at all. They kept these changes for now, which are like whatever. These changes are more relevant now if they're also adding this plus some of the other things down here. But before these were negligible. Now they're actually kind of relevant, maybe. Because you're getting wood reduction cost and better wood harvesting and stuff you want the wood for, like this. Let's see, Moonstone. Yeah, this is fine. Personally, I don't think this mattered much, whether it's 45 or 35. People are still going to use Moonstones in the same situations. Maybe this would have prompted people to spend more on Moonstones just in general, like just to toss 50 gold out for it. Whereas now they'll probably just use it the same as normal. So, I don't know, this is probably fine. Maybe this was too much. Hard to say. And then they did get rid of the mana burn range reduction nerf, which I think is good. But personally, I think there was a lot of situations where this wouldn't have mattered much anyways. It's mostly just when you get pathing blocked by a melee frontline, particularly footies and ghouls. But, you know, it's probably good to just not do this and instead change other stuff. They kept the mountain giant change. Yeah. So yeah, that's a yeah, it's like a buff, which is insane. Like I don't there's this is not the type of buff you put into the game. You don't change gathering rates unless it's like early into the game cycle, you know, like if this is Stormgate we're talking about, right? You can change gathering rates if you want. But you know, we're 20 years into the game and you're suddenly just making the gather rate better. That's bad. Don't do that. Do these type of changes if you're gonna change wood cost stuff, right? Like these are fine. These don't mean much by themselves, but this is bad for the game. Um, Keeper strength gain. I don't know what this means. I mean, I understand what it means, but I don't know what it like works out to. Basically, every 5 levels, he now gets 1 extra strength. But I don't know what the level cutoffs are for that, or like what the rounding is like, if there is rounding. But let's just say level 5 he gets +1 strength, and level 10 he gets +2 strength from what he used to have. So this is like whatever, like it's very small. Personally, I think so. And then Treant attack speed reduced from 1.75 to 1.65. Now it says attack speed reduced, but for some reason I feel like this is supposed to be a buff as well. Kind of like the gather rate reduced. Like this means they attack every 1.65 instead of 1.75, right? Which is faster. I could be wrong. But I think that's probably fine because Keeper was falling out of favor anyways. And people had a long time to figure out Keeper, and they were mostly afraid of his Entangle instead of Treants to begin with. So this is probably fine. I like it. It's okay. Assuming it's a small buff for Treants. Because it doesn't actually give them damage or health or armor or anything. It just makes them attack faster, which situationally might add 0 damage unless they actually get that extra attack off. um, Chimera movement speed increased from 250 to 290. That is huge. What is gyro move speed? 400 to 375. So they're still, a slowish unit. But aren't heroes around like 300 move speed? So they're like similar to heroes? I don't actually hate this change, but I wonder if it should be toned down to like 270 instead of 290. Maybe 290 is a bit much, especially because chimeras have corrosive breath. If you got 290s, like I'm pretty sure the reason why they have slow speed is because of corrosive breath. So this is probably bad, but I wouldn't hate a small movement speed buff. Or like, what if they gave this movement speed buff but made corrosive breath have less range? I don't know if that would be good or bad for chimeras, but it'd probably be more reasonable. This is pretty big though. I still don't know how much they'll be used, but it's pretty big. And now we'll look at these ones first. Vorpal Blades now grants 10 additional damage. Sounds insane. Wait. Elfmere sounds horrible now. And then this is also Elfmere sounds horrible now. And then Mana Flare toggle off for the full duration. I don't know what this means because couldn't you already toggle off Mana Flare to begin with? Was there like a bug? Anyways, then the big change. Moonglaive upgrade now gives Huntresses heavy armor. I hate this change. I don't necessarily hate them trying to buff Huntresses in some way like this, but this is bad in a lot of ways. If anything, this should be a toggle, like a defend type toggle. And what it should do is if you have the thing off, you get bouncing glaives, +1 bounce. And if you have it on, your huntresses get reduction to piercing damage or heavy armor or whatever. something like that. But the fact that you just get both, you get the bouncing glaive and you get heavy armor, sounds kind of crazy. Now, it is kind of weird because like the one situation where huntresses were still like used a bit besides Mir was against like orc, but orc would oftentimes play like grunt shaman, and that didn't even have piercing damage against the hunts. And now that they're heavy armor, technically the shaman do more damage, so it's kind of weird there. This obviously, I think this is like kind of cool versus maybe like undead and human. Like human will still do fine because like sorks and priests will do extra damage, and you do want sorks against this shit anyways, right? But yeah, I don't know. It's the problem is this just makes Elfmere horrible. It makes the game weird because you have a unit that actually changes armor type that's not toggleable or like revertible. Because the only other instances is like defend giving the reflect bonus and damage reduction, right? Or archer plus hippo combining from medium and unarmored, I believe, to light armor with a hippo rider. But this is like something completely different. I don't like this. I don't hate that they have ideas like this, but I think it should be different. You know, like I said, maybe even some toggleable thing would be interesting, where it's like you either have the extra bounce or you toggle it to get reduction to piercing and siege damage or something rather than actually heavy armor. You know, make it kind of like defend in a way. But instead of losing move speed, you lose the bounce. That would be interesting. I don't know. There's probably some way to change this and make it cool, but this change seems bad. And this change combined with it seems bad because now Elfmere is going to be hunts and glaive throwers. Like that's what it is. Because you also get wood reduction costs on all and whatever. Now you could say, oh, the Demon Hunter player now with these reduced cost can, you know, maybe get some APs and stuff up with all this extra wood. But the problem is, you know, glaives are owning, so I don't know. I think this is bad. Like this is bad. This is bad. This is probably bad, but maybe there's something there. If corrosive breath is slightly changed, I don't know. So I don't really like, and this is bad. Like the elf changes are really bad. They tried to give stuff to elf, but the way they're doing it is bad in my opinion. Undead. Okay, what? Reverted spike carapace, reverted web. I do think this is good to revert. This is probably also good to revert. They tried to do this change before and they also decided not to, so it makes sense that they revert it. This is sad to see. I would rather gargoyles be bad against ground. If anything, I'd rather they get like +5 damage or something versus air and -1 damage versus ground. You know, like make them even better. Instead, they decided to reduce move speed. Uh, yeah, I guess this is reasonable. If they are gonna not get rid of the ground damage thing, this also helps. But this makes them worse in air versus air as well. So I would have preferred this sort of change because I don't think nerfing their air versus air is necessary. And then was it Nerubian and Water Negation? Because we can just look at it in this section. The Nerubian, they made it still a buff, but less of a buff. Sure. I mean, Nerubian was already plenty fine, I thought, but now they made it stronger. Probably just because Undead's a little bit reliant on them, so they want to make sure it's somewhat strong. Although it was somewhat strong, so I don't know. I don't know if this is needed, but it's at least more reasonable than this one. So good to revert it back somewhat, but I'm not sure if it's needed to begin with. And then one negation. This one is interesting. So they changed it from 2 charges AoE dispel to 4 charges single target dispel. I feel like this can be good situationally, but I'm unsure of what the cooldown time is for casting one negation. If you can just cast it one after the other, just use 4 charges real quick, I think this is fine. If there's like a cooldown between each charge use, it's kind of sucks to have it be single target. No cooldown. Yeah, if it's no cooldown, I think this is fine. That being said, 200 damage to a single summon unit sounds pretty weak. Like, doesn't level 1 water elemental have like 400 something health? Like, am I wrong here? Isn't level 1 water ele like 400 health? So you'd have to use 2 charges just to get rid of a level 1 water ele? Or like 3 charges to get rid of a level 2 water ele? I feel like this should be buffed. Especially when you consider they buffed Lightning Orb here, right? They felt damage against summons should be buffed, so they did something like that with Lightning Orb. But then here, they're like, 200 damage. Like, isn't Purge like 300 damage or something? I could be wrong on these numbers, but for some reason this seems low to me. Maybe it's fine because they have 4 charges. Yeah, if you were against a Bash Bear, you'd have to use like 6 charges of this. Holy. You'd have to have your whole inventory full of authentication. Now, see, it doing 200 damage to summons in like an AoE sounds fine, right? Because then you're AoEing down wolves or beetles or multiple water alleys next to each other. But when it's single target, it's supposed to have higher value, right? So I feel like this number is low, but I could be wrong. Anyways, I think that was it for Undead. I think I looked at the others right. I do think it's good to revert this. This does get a bit crazy. Like the fact that level 2 Carapace reflects half the damage to Demon Hunter or Blade is kind of crazy. Because before it wasn't even that much at max level, and now it was that much at level 3 or 4 Lord. So this was probably a bit like if they were gonna buff it, what if it was like 20, 20, 35, 50? Just something small. It's like +5 to each of these. Maybe that'd be more reasonable. And is that it? I think that's pretty much it, unless there's. I think that's it, unless there was some secret changes down here. I don't really want to look through these again, especially if they're the same. This is the same. Like this mostly, I don't know. This mostly affects healing Death Knight or something, but I think it's fine.